We are going to work through Halstead's new wire-wrapped earring kit. It's a great kit and comes with all you need to make 6 pairs of hoop earrings that are beaded and wire-wrapped. So it's a fun way to combine multiple techniques. It comes with 2 types of wire, 20 gauge wire and 28 gauge wire for your wrapping. It comes with 1 pair of pre-made hoops, and I'm going to show you how to make the hoops on your own as well. And it comes with a couple different sizes of seamless beads as well as some chain to enhance your designs. The tools that we're going to be working with today are pretty simple. It's a great introduction to jewelry making. So we're going to use a pair of wire snips. We're also going to need a pair of flat pliers. I like the chain nose pliers because they have a super pointy tip. We're also going to need a pair of round nose pliers. And then some tools that are also going to be helpful but are not super necessary is a ring mandrel for wrapping and forming our hoops. If you don't have a ring mandrel, you can work with any other round household objects that is pretty sturdy or stiff. A big marker works great, a pipe, something like that. A rawhide mallet is a great option as well for rounding out our hoop earrings if they need a little bit of finessing. And a ruler can be super helpful too, just for making sure that our hoops are the same size. Let's get started. We're going to start with the absolute basics. We're going to take the pre-made pair of hoop earrings. They're nice. They're just a little tension pair of hoops. And we're just going to make a fun beaded design on them. They're super easy. You just slide the beads right on and you have a great pair of hoops. I'm going to be using 3mm beads and the 5mm beads. So what you're going to do is you're just going to pop that hoop open, and using your fingers to hold it open, you're just going to slide your beads on in the pattern that you want. And that's it. And now you can pop these in your ear, wear them. The beads have a little bit of fun movement while you're wearing them. And it's a great, super easy way to make some earrings. So the kit also comes with 20 gauge wire so that you can make your own hoops. This pair that I'm going to walk you through is first we're going to make the hoops together, and then I'm going to show you this basic wire wrap technique for the beads. So I'm going to cut 4 inches of the 20 gauge wire for each hoop earring. And I'm just going to straighten this wire out with my fingers. It does not have to be perfectly straight. I just want it decently straight so I can get a fairly accurate measurement before I snip it. So measure that out, and I'm just going to use my snips and snip it at 4 inches. And you can measure the other one out on the ruler, or you can just hold it up to the piece that you've already cut and match them. And before I go any further, I just want to make sure that the ends of my wires are nice and smooth. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the flat side of my snips and face it towards the body of my wire and just give it a quick little snip on each side. And what that is going to do is make sure that I've got a flat end there. And then you can just take a little bit of sandpaper or a needle file if you have, and just kind of gently round that out so it's a little bit more comfortable to go through your ear. A little bit of sandpaper, 320 grit, 400 is a great option for this. And it just makes sure that it's nice and comfortable. If you have a nail file at home, that's a great tool to use for this as well. So making these earrings is really pretty simple. The first thing that we want to do is we want to make this loop that our end of the wire hooks into. And we're going to do that by grabbing the very end of our wire with our round nose pliers. And I like to do it somewhere near the tip because that loop really doesn't need to be that big. So I'm just grabbing it at the very end and I'm going to wrap it all the way around, just like that. And then I'm going to put the very tip in the hole and just kick it a little bit to straighten that loop out so that it looks more like a lollipop instead of the letter P or D. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other one, and I'm going to try and make sure that I grab it in the same spot on my pliers that I did with the other one so they match. And then I'm popping the very tip into that loop and just giving it a little bit of a kick so that it is in the center of my wire now. And if I notice if my wire is a little crooked, I can take my flat nose pliers and just straighten that loop out if I need to. It's always good just to give it a little bit of a double check. Make sure everything's in line and close up that loop completely. The next thing we need to do is make it round. So you're going to take whatever you're using for rounding out and shaping your hoops, whether that's a ring mandrel or a fat marker or something like that. So I've got my ring mandrel here and I've already made a couple pairs of these, so I know that this size, I want to wrap it around the size 8 on my mandrel is going to give me about the size that I want. And using my fingers, I'm just going to wrap it all the way around. And it will overlap. See how my ends are overlapped? But because my wire has a little bit of spring to it, when I take it off, it's not that tight anymore. So it's made a larger circle. And now I can just kind of tweak this with my fingers a little bit. And I want to make sure to bend that wire loop up so that it actually hooks onto the end. And I'm going to do that with my flat nose pliers. So I'm going to grab that loop completely in my pliers, the whole loop, and just bend it up to somewhere between 45 degrees and 90 degrees. And now I'm just gonna do the rest of the forming with my fingers. So I'm just working with that tension to make sure that when I close that hoop up, the end stays inside my hoop because that's how it's securing it in our ear and it's not falling out. So I'm just using my fingers a little bit. I can use my pliers as well if I want to just kind of add a little bit of roundness to the very tip. And now we have one hoop and we're going to wrap the other one the same exact way. So we've got our hoop earrings here, and now we want to add a little bit of decoration to them. So we're going to do a fairly basic wire wrap with some of the 4mm beads. And I'm going to use that 28 gauge wire to do the wrapping. So you're going to use about 12 inches for the pair. So I usually like to cut the full 12 inches first, and I'll make one earring and then use what's ever left to make the second earring. All right, to start, I'm gonna take my wire and give myself about a 1.5 to 2 inch tail, and I'm going to anchor my wire to the hoop. So I'm gonna use that tail and wrap it around the hoop earring about 3 times. I'd say that's the minimum you need to really secure it, But if you want to wrap it more times for a decorative element, you can absolutely do that. And I'm just using my fingers here to wrap that wire around the hoop, and I want to make sure to do it nice and tight and make those coils right next to each other. And I'm doing that 3 times with that tail. And I can just leave that tail hanging out there for now. I don't have to worry about trimming it. I'm going to do that at the very end when we're finishing everything up. So I've just made sure to push all my coils up nice and tight next to each other. And now is when we're going to start adding our beads. So I've got the long side of my wire, and I'm going to slide one of my beads on to that wire. And using my fingers just to hold the bead upright to the hoop earring, I'm going to bend that wire around and give it one wrap around the hoop earring. And so now my wire is sticking out up at the top again, and I can continue to add as many beads around that hoop that I want in that same method. So I'll slide whatever size bead I'm working on, use my fingers to hold it up against that hoop nice and tight, and I'll wrap that wire around the hoop earring once. So you want to make sure to have that wire come fully around your hoop earring in between each bead. That's going to help secure them and keep them in place. And you're going to continue to add all of your beads in the same method. All right, so we've just slid our last bead on, and now we're ready to finish it off. And so instead of just doing that one wrap that we would do in between beads, we're just gonna wrap it that 3 or 4 times to match the other side. And I'm still holding that bead tight to the hoop with my fingers, and now I'm just wrapping that wire around 3 or 4 times, keeping it nice and tight and pushing all those coils up next to each other. And I just want to make sure to have this same number of coils on each side of my beads so that they match. And this looks like I've got about 4. So going to do that. And then I'll use the flat side of my snips and snip that thin wire as close to the hoop earring as I can. And then I'm just going to use my flat nose pliers and tuck in that tail of the wire if it's sticking up at all. Just give it a gentle pinch to flatten it to the hoop earring. And now if we're a little off center, I can just kind of pull my beads to the middle. Now, the more beads you wrap on there, the harder it will be to move them around. So just keep that in mind. And then we've got a hoop earring with some fun beaded decoration to it. So that's the basics of wire wrapping those beads on, but that doesn't mean that you are limited to that. There are tons of options for decoration. You can, first of all, you can change the shape of your hoop earring. I made this pair oval. You can add another layer of beads using that same wire wrap technique. It is a little bit more advanced, but it's a way to add a little bit extra, a little bit more advanced once you've got the basics. This kit also comes with some cable chain, and it's really fun to mix that chain in with your beads too. So I've added on this one this little drop with the chain. You can add a fringe if you'd like. There's so many options, and you can also start to mix in your own beads. You can add some gemstone beads for some color, or some gold fill or rose gold fill beads to work with that mixed metals look. There are tons of options now that you have the basics. This kit is a great introduction to jewelry making as it doesn't involve a ton of specialized tools. And if you are looking for some more advanced or to continue your jewelry making education, in-person classes are a great option. I would Google your location plus jewelry making classes or metalsmithing classes, and hopefully some great options will come up in your area. Thanks for learning how to make some wire wrapped earrings with me today.